Hi, everyone. Dan Rothert. We'll start here in a minute or two. Some people still jumping on, but thanks for joining me tonight. Look forward to talking about recruiting and game planning and everything in between. Sorry, it's 8 o'clock. We'll get started. I'm a coach. I like to start on time with practice or with whatever I'm doing. Dan Rothert. I live in Dubuque. Coach ODP. I was a longtime college soccer coach, and I run top student athlete recruiting, which is my day job, where I help prospects, recruits, and their families in the college soccer recruiting realm, helping them connect with college coaches. By me personally reaching out, helping them make highlight videos, answer questions. Should I go to this camp? Should I not? What should I do next in the process? Evaluate players and let them know levels of play that are the right level, and everything in between to help them land at great fit opportunities um, around the country, wherever they're at. I work with players from around the country. I know this is mostly um, Iowa ODP players or past ODP players, but it's for everybody. And there's a lot of information here, and we'll jump into it. I'll tell you a little bit more about the process. I had a webinar a few weeks back where we talked about um, just the basics of recruiting and where it's been and what's happened over the last uh, few years. A lot of things have changed in recruiting with transfer portal, roster limits at Division One. Now there's roster limits of 28 at the Division One level that trickles down to everybody. They're talking about fifth year of eligibility um, for anybody that wants it in college athletics. That might be a possibility coming forward. So there's just been a lot of changes. I have that webinar recorded. I can share that in the follow up as well. But today we're going to talk about what is your recruiting game plan. We're going to expand on that stuff and how can you target the best opportunities for you. Every player I work with is different. Everyone has different goals. Some are You have different levels of priorities in these realms: academics, athletics, soccer, obviously. Like, what level do you want to play at? How good are you? The academic level of the school. What do you want out of the school academically? What do you want to be when you're done? Um, where do you want to live? Location obviously plays into that. How much it's going to cost you? Um, those types of things. Social, all those things play into this. So I'm going to break this down a little bit deeper in each area. And so you can have a little bit better idea when you're starting to target schools, or if you're into that part already, you have a better feel for things. And I'm going to give you some tips and tricks to help you through that process and move forward with recruiting a little bit so that you're in a great spot when the time comes. Obviously, I was a college coach for almost 25 years. I've been doing this for about six. My teams were super successful. I was at Loras College in Dubuque here for most of my career, but I bounced around a little bit before that. I was also associate athletic director at Loras, where I oversaw recruiting for all sports. So, what is your right fit? Um, you know, and how can you save time, money, and energy on this thing? A lot of people start off with a huge list of schools and they just are dreaming, and that's okay to dream. I think it's fine. But at some point you have to get to some realistic um, choices based on who you are academically, who you are as a soccer player, who you are financially. So you need to know what your priorities are and what you're looking for. Um, You need to know if you can play at that school, know if you're good enough, or if it's a stretch, or if it's a maybe, or if it's a sure thing. Those are things that are important. Like when you're recruiting, hey, I might have a chance there. I probably don't. I definitely do. Well, knowing those things are important. Knowing your chances of getting admitted. Some schools take 95% of the students that apply. Other schools take 5% of the students that apply. Now, soccer can help you, and your sport can help you get admitted at certain places at a really elite academic school with a low acceptance rate. But you need to know that, hey, it's a tougher place to get into. That it might be harder for me to go there if my grades don't match up. What will the financials look like? Um, do you go to an Ivy League school where there's no athletic money and there's really no academic money at those schools? And if you have a good amount of money in your bank account, or you're just actually pretty average in terms of income, family income, you're probably going to pay full freight and pay the whole bill there at 90,000 a year and still to play Division 1, or you're going to go someplace where you can get a full ride. And maybe the academics credentials aren't the same, but you'll come out without debt. We're going to talk about some of that stuff as we get going. Um, know if the school is what you're looking for academically, socially, and in the end, you want options on the table. We I tell everybody I work with, we want 5 to 10 options on the table so that you can decide out of those 5 to 10 which one fits the bill the best for you. So let's talk about soccer and the athletic considerations. Too many prospects overshooting this thing. A lot of kids that come to work with me and start in this process always talk about Division 1. I want to play Division 1, or I want to play at Clemson, or I want to play at Indiana. Those are some of the best soccer schools in the country, right? How no, I want to play Notre Dame. That's fine. It's fine to have those types of dreams and goals, obviously, but at the same time, too many prospects start off and that's all they talk about, and they don't cast a wide enough net. They don't recognize there's other schools that might fit the bill better, and the schools have to want you to play there. And they get behind the eight ball. They get frustrated in this process, and then they end up with little or no options in the end. And that's not what we want. We want to have lots of options. So again, most prospects that I work with, I talk to a lot of high school kids. I coach high school. I coach ODP. Most prospects think they are better than they are. I'm just gonna say it. I'm a pretty blunt guy. College soccer is a fantastic level at all levels. There are really good Division 1s, really good Division 3s. We're going to talk about that, but you need to target the right levels. What is right for you? You know, watching games, understanding what that school is like, how they play. Do you see yourself getting on the field? But don't self-sabotage yourself in this recruiting process and think you're better than Division 3 or better than you are. All right, so listen to everybody. Have backup plans. Have plan A, plan B, plan C. Get some schools interested in you, and then you can be picky. But until you have schools interested in you, you can't be picky. If the first schools are usually that reach out to you are Division 3 because they don't have the same contact rules as Division 1. Listen to them, hear them out, because they might not be your ultimate goal, but they could end up being great plan Bs depending on what happens. Recruiting has completely changed in the last few years. Like I said, transfer portal, international recruiting, gap years, maybe 5 years of eligibility coming forward. It's really made it harder to go Division 1 right out of high school. It's harder for boys. I'm going to be brutally honest about that. It's harder for boys than it is for girls. There's more opportunities for girls in Division 1, and the international scene is not nearly as big on the women's soccer side of things. So it is harder for boys. And but it affects all levels, because Division 1 has roster limits. That means kids that were playing Division 1 a few years ago are now playing Division 2, and so on. And some Division 2 kids are playing Division 3, and it's really hard for actually a freshman to play at any level of play. I don't care, boys, girls. It's hard to learn the system, know how to play, and what the coach is looking for. But just a few things. Most people think Division One's the best, and Division Two, then Division Three. This is not professional soccer in Europe where there's promotion and relegation. Um, most, like I said, most people think that's every Division One team is better than every Division Two, and all the way down the line. That's not how it looks. The real thing is there's Division One has a lot of the better teams. I'm not gonna BS that, but there's a lot of overlap. There's D2 and D3 teams that could beat Division One teams. My teams, when I was coaching Division Three for a long time, we would go play Division One teams and we would win. My teams were really good. We were competing for national championships. We would win, and I know last year or 2 years ago, the top Division Two team on the boys' side played the top Division One team, number one versus number one. It was like early in the season, and the number one in Division Two beat the number one in Division One. So there is a lot of overlap. There are really good teams at all the levels. But then you got to factor in some of these things. The best academic schools kind of fall into some different things. So these are your schools like Stanford and Duke that have soccer and they have really good academics. And they're big Northwestern, they're big power institutions. They have some of the best athletics and some of the best academics. All right, then there's another swath of really good academic schools in Division One that probably fits towards the bottom of Division One. It's called the Patriot League, and there's some other schools that fit that bill that might be really good academic schools, but they maybe are not as athletically focused. Even the Patriot League or the Ivy League, right? They may not have all the money in the world to give the athletes and full rides and things like that. So those are there. Then, like in Division Three, there's this group of really high academic schools. University of Chicago, Washington University, St. Louis. There's a bunch on the East Coast, Middlebury, Amherst, those types. The high academic schools are usually the best at soccer, to be honest. They're really good. A lot of people want to go to those schools no matter what. University of Chicago is considered one of the best schools in the country. And so they get top level athletes that want to go there for the academics, and they can compete with tons of schools at the Division One level. They would win a lot of games. Then there's really bad schools academically. There's bad schools academically at Division One, and usually they have not much money, and they don't have a very good outcome rate, so not many kids want to go there. Maybe they have bad soccer as well. Division Two has the same thing. Division Three has the same thing. Bad endowments, which is how much money the school has to use for scholarshiping and facilities, and just it's a tough situation. And it's a place that not that many people would want to go to those types of schools. So there's different reasons at each level that you might want to go to a certain place. But most kids I work with think I'm not quite Stanford or Duke, but I think I can play at a mid-major, a mid-Division One. A great number of recruits think this. I would say 80% of the kids I work with will tell me if I had to ask them, what level do you think they are? Oh, I think I could play Division One. Maybe not the highest level of Division One, but I think I could play Division One. I don't want to play at a really bad school. So now they all think they're here in this like middle. Well, there's just not enough room in the end. Some of those kids will end up at Division One schools. A lot of them will end up at Division Two and Division Three schools. There's just not enough room at this level, so you have to keep an open mind. You just it's the numbers game doesn't play out to make it so everybody can play in that level. So what do you need to be doing to figure out the levels of play? Go see college games in your area and really watch and think to yourself, can I see myself playing and getting on the field there? Do I see myself getting on the field now? Is it going to take some years? Right now, with 28 person rosters, coaches honestly at the Division One level aren't developing players anymore because of the transfer portal. So they want people that can play right away or compete right away, and they don't want people to go to them and then work for a year and then transfer out, and then they develop them for a year and then they go somewhere else, and they're not looking for that. So they want people who can compete right away. So that's why they go and get older players from the transfer portal, or they get 22-year-old Europeans that played in the third division or whatever it was, weren't quite pro players yet, played in academies. Um, but other things you need to be doing, and I mentioned this last time, if you were on my webinar last time, if you have a coach in your club or high school that knows this, ask them what level they think you are. But you need to be ready if you want the truth, right? If you're going to ask that question, and that coach might say, you're you're a pretty low level player. You're going to be you're lucky to be a Division 3 player. Like, you got to be ready to handle that. Or, because a lot of kids will be like, oh, I think this coach will say I'm going to be a Division 1 player. You got to be ready to understand that they might tell you the truth, and you got to be ready for it. But not all high school or club coaches know this or are ready to do that, because they don't want to disappoint you. A lot of coaches might not tell you straight up because they don't want to disappoint you. They want you to play for them. They want you to compete for them and do well. And if they tell you like something that hurts your feelings, then you might be mad and just not show up on a regular day and like really compete anymore. I see this a lot. There's some of these ID camps, and I don't love camps, and I'm going to do a whole nother webinar about ID camps. But there's a lot of camps I don't like, and there's some of them give out evaluations after the camp, and I am shocked when I see these evaluations, because some of the players I work with have shown me some of these evaluations, and they rate us 1 through 100. What my level of play is. 90 to 100 is a Division 1 player, and almost every player I work with gets a 90 something back on their evaluation. Well, why do they get that 90? Because the coach wants them to be happy, and they want to make some money. They want the kid to come back to their camp next time. So I don't like those camps. I don't like evaluations from those camps. If you want a true assessment, here's what I would do. I would reach out to a local college coach and ask if they will come assess you. You can pay them. Ask them if you can pay them. Maybe there's some rules that allow you to. Some would say no. Some would say yes, depending on their division. But if you can get a local college coach to come out and say, yeah, I think you're a D1 player. All right. The coaches usually know, right? The college coaches usually know. Or get video to someone like me, and I can evaluate, or see you at an ODP event. Like, I can do that. But you got to be ready for the truth, right? Like, that's a big part of it. If you're going to do that, you got to be ready for, whatever that truth may be. Whether it's they say you're Division 1, fantastic. Maybe they say you're a Division 3 player. Maybe you're fine with that, fantastic. But I think that's something that people miss a lot. My nephew's a volleyball player in California. He's been hurt. He's a senior, and he's huge, and he's very good. And he's like, well, how do I do this? And I said, you need to get a coach that or you in your area that can assess your level of play. Well, the local junior college coach was one of his coaches when he was little. Called him, got an assessment, and so he's in a better spot to know what schools to target and things of that nature. But there's other things you need to consider about the school, right? And the team. How do you relate to the team, the coaches, the players on the team? How do you get along on and off the field? You go and spend a day there, and you have lunch with them. Once you get down in the recruiting process, or you really see yourself fitting in, or what's the style of play? Do you fit into that? Does the coach really want you, or are you trying to force your way on a roster? I always say go where you're loved, and I'm going to talk about that at the end of this. But I think it's really important if you're not getting much love from a coach, um, but you keep pinging them, and they don't get back to you, at some point they may not be all that interested. But if they're calling you every day, and they want you, and they're after it, I think there's some things there that can make a big difference. Does the roster have teammates you relate to and have common goals with, right? Like, knowing that is important. This is one of my teams. We played the national championship game. This is a picture, right? When we had great crowds, and what's the fan following at the school? We had great fan following. A lot of players came to see. A lot of people came to see us play, and we had attendance records at the Division 3 level. Way more players way more fans at our games at the Division 3 level than Division 1 games I go see, and I still go see. I go to some games that have 3 people in the stands or 20 people in the stands, and I go to other games where there's 1,000 or two. Those things do play into it. So, what kind of support does the athletic department give? What kind of support does the community give? Um, is there interest in getting involved in other things beyond soccer and academics? And what does that community hold? Is there internship opportunities in the area? Are there, is it a big city? Is it a small town? What does the school offer that can make a big difference? Those are things you need to consider in this process that can make a big difference. Um, Athletically, academically, there's a lot of things that play into it. You need a very specific major. Now, majors change, and I get that, but like if you want engineering, if you want aeronautical engineering, there's not that many schools that have it. So now you got to find a school that has aeronautical engineering and soccer at the level you want to play at and is recruiting you, right? So you need to market yourself and put yourself out to those particular schools that, hey, I'm interested in this program. I also want to play soccer. You let the coach know who you are and those types of things, and it makes it better. Other things in the academic fit. What is the ability of that school to help you get where you want to be after graduation? Huge deal. How's that good as that school at landing people in jobs that are, in their major? Can you get accepted, or is that unknown? Is it a really low acceptance rate? If you do get accepted, will you just barely get in? And if you do barely get in, maybe you don't get much merit aid, which usually merit aid means academic money, right? So money for your grades and your ACT, your SAT score. Will it be too hard? Well, academically, is it a grind? Is that school just really fast paced? And are you ready for that? And we don't want anyone to fail out, and, those types of things either. Um, High academic schools often do what's called a pre-read. A pre-read is they look at your grades. A coach will recruit you and be interested in you. And before they get too interested and go down the road and have you visit and all that stuff, they'll do what's called a pre-read. A pre-read means they're going to look at your grades and make sure you are a person that would get in, most likely get in without athletics or be close, fit that profile of the school. And then the cool thing about it is soccer can help you get in those schools. They have certain slots. So like a soccer coach may have 6 or 8 slots at their school, depending on what they graduate for on a given year for soccer recruits. And if you meet a certain academic criteria and you're good enough, they're going to put you in one of their slots. And the coach makes that choice, not the admissions office. Pretty nice, right? It's almost like a free pass. So getting good grades is really important. I talked about that last time. But grades can be a big difference. It can help you get in better schools. It can help you get more merit money. Now, most scholarshiping is a combination of merit and academics. And in soccer, there's not a ton of schools out there that give full rides for just a soccer player. It's not basketball and football. Football has 100 full ride scholarships. That's not the case in soccer. Most schools, it's a combination of athletic and academic money, and very few people are getting full rides. And some are barely getting any money. I just want you to be aware of that. Even the kids that go Division One, a lot of them come in freshman year. They're on a limited amount of athletic scholarship money. Now, sometimes they're getting academic money, but I've seen anywhere from 0 to 15,000 in soccer money, in addition to some academic money. There's more money on the girls' side than the boys' side, but it's hard to get a full ride, and it's actually you'd be surprised at how much soccer players are paying to go to play Division One. A lot of them pay quite a bit. That's just the nature of this thing. We're not an Olympic sport or we are an Olympic sport, which is swimming, soccer, non-revenue sports. They're not making money for the college. But I see a lot of prospects overshoot here too. I want to go to Harvard. Well, if you can't get into Harvard, we're wasting our time. And coaches aren't going to waste time on you if you can't get in. So grades matter, rigor matters, and test scores matter. that can help you. We'll talk about test scores in a minute, but that's just another piece of the academic fit. I put this slide in here for it doesn't really fit into this thing, but it's important to know. All right, we have all these different platforms. We have ODP, we have USYS, we have CDL, ECNL, MLS Next, ECNLR. Probably you're playing at least one of these, if not two or three. How does exposure play into recruiting? A lot of people ask me this. What club should I play for? What level should I play at? What platform should I be on? Doesn't matter if what platform you play on. I would say at the very, very highest level, it might matter a little bit. If you want to play in the Power Five, you probably should be playing in the highest level you can be in, MLS Next or ECNL. But I see kids all the time that land at these types of places that are not in those platforms. And I'll tell you this: I wouldn't put my money on it. I wouldn't spend all the money to travel the country and change clubs and go somewhere where I got to drive 2 or 3 hours to practice, and where it's not very convenient. And there's maybe I don't have any friends on the team, and I just go there, have practice, come home, do my homework in the car, miss out on a lot of high school. I wouldn't do it unless I was 100% sure I was going to that level. I wouldn't put that type of energy into it. I think you can land at almost any other college except maybe the Indianas of the world. I shouldn't even say Indiana because I actually know two kids who are high school soccer players right now in Illinois, and they don't play MLS Next. They play their high school team, and they're going to go play at Indiana next year. So I think you can get there from all the levels. Um, but I also think don't give up the now for something that might be in the future. I see too many kids like I'm going to go play for this club, and I'm going to drive 3 hours, and I'm going to do this so I can play Division One. And I'm like, really hard to play Division One. I don't know if that's worth it. Um, Something I help people with all the time, and we just go through the pros and cons of it and get to know that stuff. But I don't want to crush dreams either. I'm not here to crush dreams, but I'm here to talk reality. That I think you can get most places from anywhere. I got plenty of kids. I got a player that's a USYS player that's playing Division One right now. He's a freshman. He plays, and then there's another kid that is on that same team that I work with. That he played in the ECNL and he doesn't play. Right. So like you can get there different levels, different ways, and you got to have the right situation and do you and have the right advocates and you can get some places. I could go on and on about that. If anyone wants to talk to me more in person about that stuff, I'm happy to help you. Um, I don't bash any platform. I think there's opportunities in all platforms to get where you will. I mean, I got kids that went to the ODP, and because I did well in ODP, they got recruited at a really high level. That's a real thing. Going back to academics, this slide is a little bit out of order, but is the right size classes? Are you gonna have a relationship with your professors and those types of things and the academic folks? What's the internships opportunities? What's the chance to study abroad? Can you do that? Can you go to a Division One and study abroad, or can you not? Some are gonna say no, you can't do that because you're gonna miss our spring season. Well, that might be something you want to really do. So maybe you aren't going to go to Division One. What's the career center look like? How well does it help you land at a job? Then you got social considerations, right? The location. Is getting home a priority? Is having your parents come see you play a big deal to you? Do you want to be in a small town? Do you want to be in a urban center right in the middle of the city? Do you want to be? Doesn't matter. Do you want to be in the middle of nowhere? Are you okay with being in the middle of nowhere? Is big school, small school? Are you good enough to play at a big state school? Obviously, the big state schools maybe have our Division One, and then what are alternatives to that? You know, I got a lot of players that play at like the UW state schools, and that they're a little bit different. They have about 10,000 students, so they're still really good size. They're not a 1 to 2,000 Division three like the Iowa Division threes, but they're Division three schools. And they get this big school feeling, but they're playing at a Division three, and the price is right. We'll talk about that in a moment too. What's the social free time things to do in your area? Um, too many students I work with, or at least in the beginning, they say, "Oh, I don't want to go to a school," because they've never heard of it. That's really what it is. They've never heard of it. They want to go to name brand so they can post it on their social media at the end of the day. Too many students. I always say this: you're only going to hang out with the same amount of people anyhow. Doesn't really matter. How many students are there? Like you can only hang out with so many people. I mean, this same friend group right here is probably these guys probably hang out 24/7, right? Like they're not hanging out with a ton more people. So don't get caught up in that piece either. Um, is it a suitcase college? Do kids go home on the weekends, or do they stay and hang out? And there's a great environment, great community. Yeah, those are all things to consider. Um, Financial considerations. There's need-based aid, which is based on your family income and assets. There's merit aid, which is based on your grades and ACT scores and SAT scores. And then there's athletic scholarships. Those are the three types of money you can get. Need-based aid can be federal or state money that's given to you because you meet a threshold of income or not income, I should say. And each school has more money too. All right, so that they might be able to give for that because they want a diverse population at their school as well. Um, and then there's public versus private colleges. Now, a lot of kids tell me, "Oh, I want to go to University of Colorado, Dan." And I'm like, "Yeah, let's talk about that." Well, first off, University of Colorado doesn't have men's soccer, but they have women's. And if you're an out-of-state student at the University of Colorado, or let's say there's another one out there, Colorado School of Mines is Division 2. It's in the mountains. People like it. Out-of-state cost for that school is like $60,000, and you're not going to get any money. You're going to get zero. They don't give merit aid to an out-of-state kid. They don't give. You don't get um, need-based aid. You might get some athletic scholarship, but it doesn't really change that a ton. So going to an out-of-state school is really financially hard. It costs a lot of money. Like I tell my kids all the time, like out-of-state states probably off limits in our house. It's not something we're going to pursue, except there's a few tricks that I know, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. Um, University of Missouri gives you can go there year one, you got to pay the full bill. But in year two, you can be an in-state tuition if you stay there for the summer between your freshman and sophomore year. So the next 3 years, you're considered in-state. There's a little trick there, right? So if you're willing to pay the full freight the first year, that situation can happen in year 1 and 2. There's schools like that. I mentioned them. My nephew goes there. Those things can happen. There's reciprocity programs. We don't have any reciprocity programs in Iowa, which means our state doesn't have an agreement with another state where our kids can go out of state and go to that school for um, go to their schools for the same price. Like Minnesota and Wisconsin have reciprocity. Like you can go to a Wisconsin kid can go to any Minnesota state school for in-state tuition and vice versa. However, there are in-state grant programs that are pretty neat, and what I mean by that, there's some state schools that need people. Um, University of Northern Iowa just opened up in-state tuition to any kid in the surrounding state that touches Iowa. I say that because there's other schools like that that do the same thing for Iowa kids. The South Dakota schools do that. Um, so state schools in South Dakota, Iowa kid can go for an in-state cost. That's a pretty good deal. So hey, if you're okay going to a South Dakota school, you can get a really good deal. Wisconsin has some schools. Not all the Wisconsin state schools, but Wisconsin has some Division 3s and some Division 1s, and even a Division 2 state school. And some of those schools give a deal to kids from Iowa, so you can go there for a really good deal. Um, it can be cheaper than going to a Division 1 and even getting athletic scholarship money. There's South Dakota has some Division 2s. Missouri has a couple schools that do this. So there's places that do this. You just have to know how it works a little bit and who does what. So there's some neat, unique programs out there that can help make this a little bit. If finances is a big part of this for you, they can help you out. Um, State aka public schools versus private. All right, some private schools can be better values. Some private schools give a ton of money, and some states are cutting funding to education. All right, that's just how this is going. So don't rule out private schools. Some schools give great situations that way. Public, it's usually pretty clear what the cost is going to be up front. They have a website. It tells you, hey, this is what it costs for in-state, out-of-state. Here's some merit awards, and they have a grid based on your ACT and your GPA. Private, it's a little more uh, unclear what the final cost will be until very late in the process or after you fall in love with the place. But having understanding that's important. You know, what's the state flagship schools with other flagship? Flagship means like University of Iowa is a state flagship school. What's the option there compared to Iowa State or UNI, or in other states? Is there a special program now to drive enrollment like the UNI one? What about junior college? There's great junior colleges out there. Junior college is going to be more of an option, you know, going forward. Junior college soccer is great in Iowa. It's some of the best in the country. On the boys' side, national champs. On the girls' side, Iowa Western's national champs. There's some great options there, and they have some of them have some really neat social communities, campus life. Um, Academics are pretty strong. You know, that could be an option. But you got to target schools that knowing how much it's going to cost you, knowing what you can do to put yourself in a better position. So you have the FAFSA. People have heard of this. This is when you're a senior. Um, you know, you fill this out in October of your senior year to see how much need-based financial aid you might get. It gives you what's called the SAI number. The SAI number is what the government or that form thinks you can afford to go to college. Now, some schools will meet need. You gotta, and some that means they'll get you to that number. So if your SAI number is only $5,000, some schools that meet need will get your total cost down to $5,000. Um, so you can look at when you're looking at schools and you see that a school meets need, that's an important thing. Now they might meet need with loans, and that means there's still $5,500 more loan on top of that. So it's going to be, but that loan can be paid off later. Now I don't love loans, but there's other schools that have meet need and no loans because they have so much money, and they're a no loan institution, and that can be a pretty big deal. You can go to a no loan institution and you have a meet your need and you only have to pay $5,000. There's other schools now that are saying if your family makes under 250,000, right? Princeton just announced this, right? And you got to get into Princeton. But if your family makes under $250,000 a year and your kid gets in there, you go completely free, full ride, tuition, room and board, everything paid for. Pretty sweet. But you got to get in, right? But why not target? If you have an academic kid that might get in there, it's worth a target. I can go on and on about that. CSS profile. CSS is just another way. Some of the elite academic schools have you fill this one out as well as the FAFSA. This goes into a little more detail about your assets and other things that you might have. The school might want to know about financial your ability to pay. It can help you. It can also obviously show that you make a lot more money than you're showing on your FAFSA. So you got to know how to use the system and where to put your money. Um, there's certain things. Now the FAFSA is 2 years prior. So both these use your taxes from 2 years prior. So if your son is going to be or your daughter graduates next year, 2020 or this spring, 2026, they use your tax forms from 2024 to determine these. It's called prior year because some people are delayed taxes and all that kind of thing. Um, but knowing how to have that situation and knowing what to do, knowing where to have money, if if your kid has all the money in their name, it's going to hurt you. Um, if you have a 529 plan and it's in your kid's name and your name, it's probably going to hurt you. If it's in your grandparents' name, it's not going to hurt you. Right? I did this, my own kids. My kid's 529 plan is my brother's name. He owns it. All right. So guess what? And it doesn't hurt him and it doesn't show up that I have a 529 plan for my kid to go to college. And so I shows I have less assets to pay for college. Legal. It's not anything illegal. You just have to know how to move some things around. Um, my brother's an attorney, so if you really want to know how that goes out, I'm not cheating the system. Net price calculator. You can go into any college and fill out the net price calculator. If you want to know how much you think it's going to cost your kid to go to a certain school, go to their website. You can type in on the net price calculator your information from your taxes from 2024, and it'll tell you, it'll spit you a number that is an estimate, their best estimate, and it's close of what it would go to cost to go to school there. Most schools, if it doesn't come back as good as that, they'll give it to you. They'll say, "Oh, yeah, it's okay. We'll give that to you. It was $1,000 difference of what we said on the net price calculator and what we gave you." But I think that's a huge something you should do as a family. A, really talk about the money thing and let your kids know, hey, well, this is the area we think we can afford to pay. This is the realm of financials. If you want more, you can take out debt. You want your kid to take debt, and have these real conversations before you get all the way down the road. And then your kid decides they want to go to a certain school and you get the bill back and it's way too expensive. I've seen it too many times. Go ahead, be proactive in this. Fill out the net price calculator at certain schools. Oops, sorry. Um, and that's only going to help you uh, get to a situation where you're in a better spot financially and that type of thing. Sorry, I'm fixing my bumped my wrong button here. We'll get it up and running. There are questions as this goes along. Feel free to jump in and type them in the Q&A or the chat, and I'm happy to help that way and answer questions along the way. But I will answer them all at the end if I don't get to them. So anyhow, here's where I'm at. I think I found it. You got to realize these things. Colleges are businesses. They have formulas to try to devise financial aid packages that get students to pay more. They need to make money. They don't want to give out their best price from the start. It's kind of like buying a car, right? Like they're not going to give the best price they can give. They want to have some negotiation and leverage in there. So they're gonna. I always think they're overpriced from the start. I always ask for more. Um, the more money they make for a student, the better off they're going to be. They also have a plan. They need to make a certain amount of money per student to stay in business. Um, you may be above or below that, but you can always ask for more. Each college has that average amount they want each student to be paying to be profitable. Each college has its own formula for determining financial aid and merit awards. Some are really great. Some with, if you had a $5,000 SAI, so the government thinks you can only pay 5,000, it's still going to cost you 20,000 to go to that school because they don't have a very good packaging situation. Other schools out there, you have 5,000 SAI, they might give you the full freight because you're under 250,000 a year, under 125,000 a year, or that's just the way it is. Those things do matter. Each college does that differently. The harder the school to get into, um, the less merit likely available. All right. So we talked about that previously. The harder the school, they probably more elite the school, the less they're not going to give money for academics. You know, Harvard's not giving money out for academics because guess what? Every kid that goes there is an academic wizard. Um, Need blind versus need aware, right? Some schools, when they look at your financial aid package or your FAFSA, before you get accepted, sorry, when they're accepting you, they can look and see if you have money or not. All right. Need blind means they can't do that. So, like, need blind means, we're not going to look at anyone's financial aid before we accept them. Some are need aware and they're going to look at your financial aid package or your FAFSA or your CSS profile before they accept you because they only want to take people with money. So that's a real thing. I mean, that's things like Princeton and those types of schools can do. Um, We talked about SAI number. What's gapping? Gapping is like the difference between what your SAI number is, like how much you think you can, the government thinks you can afford, and what the school is actually charging you, right? If there's the $5,000 SAI, but the school charges you 20,000, there's a $15,000 gap. That's where you can ask for more money. That's where you can call the school and say, "Hey, we can't afford this. Our SAI is only 5,000. We can't afford 20,000." They might be able to do more for you. They might not. And school might be in a between a rock and a hard place financially. It might not be the most well-funded school currently. Um, know the difference between scholarships and grants. That's free money. Loans is money you got to pay back down the road. And work study is always going to be on your financial aid sheet too. And that's money the kid has to work for during their time there. Now, you don't have to do the work study part, but that type of thing does exist. No loan institutions. There's more and more of these super high, usually they're elite academic schools that have a lot of money, a lot of donated money and called endowments. And they just use that money to not burden their students with debt after college. If you're lucky enough to get in there, you might be able to be in that situation. Um, so what should you be doing financially? I think you got to sit down as parents and kids and have a real talk about money and the cost of education. Critical. Need to know what you can afford. Need to know if are you willing to take out loans, and if so, how much? Are there other children in the family coming after that will need to pay for college, and how much do we have saved for that? You think you'll need to go to grad school, and how much might that cost? Well, you have to take out loans for grad school. Like all those things matter, and I think you need to have that conversation in your house. I have a kid that's a freshman in college. I just did this last year. I have another one that's a junior. I have another one that's a freshman. We do this in our house, and we were able to find great fit opportunities. Um, Fill out the net price calculator at schools and find out a very good estimate of what your financial aid package might be. That's without athletic money. So if you get athletic money, that could be a bonus, but you know what it's going to look like. If you do get athletic scholarship money and it's involved, ask for that offer in writing. All right. I hate to see, hey, a coach says they're going to give me 50% athletic scholarship and then it comes back and it's 25% because the coach, you never got it in writing, right? Let's get it in writing. Um, don't commit to a college till you know the cost. I've seen a lot of kids, I'm going to go there. I'm like, you don't even know what's going to cost you. Like, how can you go there? I don't know how that plays out. There's certain people that can probably do that, but not everybody. It is okay for parents to get involved with conversations with a coach about financial aid and scholarships when that time comes. It's okay. You're paying the bill. They know that. Don't be afraid to leverage offers and ask for more, especially at private colleges. State schools have limitations, right? They can't do that. They're not going to be able to leverage offers. It's just the way it is. They're not going to be able to. They might have some scholarships for a few endowed scholarships for a kid from a certain area or some things like that, but they usually don't have much leverage there. But um, private schools, they can do a lot, especially the non-elite private schools. They can the elite private schools have a line at the door, right? They have a line of thousands of kids that didn't get in. So if you say no because it costs too much, I just gonna go ask the next kid. Um, but the non-elite academic schools, with the 30, and I say non-elite, I mean that's like the top 10% of schools, right? Other than that, everybody else is free game. Learn the differences in each school you're looking at, and then if it might fit your budget, and if you go down the road with them. I get this one a lot. At the bottom here, can investing in ACT, uh, I skipped that one for a second, but can investing in the ACT or SAT prep classes help? Is it worth it? I think it can be. I don't know. It depends on each kid's situation. A lot of schools are ACT and SAT optional right now, and still probably will be forever. Some other schools aren't, and so you got to kind of understand that when you're applying to schools. If you got a really good ACT score, that's going to be really beneficial. It can help you get more merit money at certain schools, and it can help you get into schools. So yeah, I'll use my own kid. He's a freshman in college, and he had an okay first score. He wanted a better score. Um, but was it going to help him at the schools we were looking at? So we made a decision as a family that, hey, you can, I'm not going to make you get a summer job. You're going to test, you're going to study for the ACT and SAT. You're going to take this course and you're going to study for it. Because if he gets the better score that he wants, he's going to get a ton more money, right? And that's going to be way more money than he would have gotten working a summer job. So we're going to take that risk. Um, so we decided that as a family going into his senior year. Secondly, it may change the schools he can apply to. So he went from 31 to 34 ACT. It's really, I mean, he's a pretty smart kid. And then he got in because of that. He went from looking at schools that were like mid range academic schools, and they're going to cost us 16 to 20,000 a year, probably out of pocket, to getting into schools that were elite and had, you know, under certain incomes go for free and those types of situations. And he had a lot of unbelievable offers. He's a freshman at Dartmouth and he's having a great experience and he's not paying much money to go there. But it's because he retook the ACT and he invested in that situation. So that's just my advice. It can happen. It can help you in those situations. But to go from it might move somebody from one level of scholarship to another. I had a kid that we worked with that went from if he got 2 more points higher on the ACT, he would get 5,000 more a year at a state school. Well, now it would drop his cost at a Wisconsin state school from 20,000 to 15,000 a year. That's 20,000 over 4 years. It's probably worth taking it again to see if you can get a better score. Other times it may not be worth that. So that's just something that I throw out there. That can the situation work? Can it work to your advantage? Is it important to do it? Is it not important to do it? Some kids, it may not be worth it at all. My next couple kids, it may not be worth it to retake it. We'll see what happens. Everyone's a little bit different. Those are some of the advices I give and based on what I'm doing. But in the end, you want options, right? You want your kid to have options so that you can decide what is best for you based on your ability as a soccer player, as a student, and you're gonna have options, right? You have dream schools, and that's fine to have dream schools. You have safety schools, target schools, you have low cost schools. Put them all out there. Reach out to all of them and have options there. And if the dream schools come through, great. If you have safety schools you know you can play at, and you know you can probably get into. Targets are, hey, I think that's a really good fit for me, both academically and soccer wise. Dream schools might be a little bit of a stretch. And then low cost schools, or if your financials is a really important piece to this puzzle, what's going to be the lowest cost situation for me? Ideally, you want all your priorities hit the mark and you find an option that's unbelievable, right? But you need to be nimble. You need to be able to flex in this situation, depending on what happens. That's part of the game planning is you need to be able to flex and lead, hey, this isn't working. I'm not maybe not good enough to play here, but I like this, and this about this type of school. Is there other schools that might fit the bill? And the game plan changes due to your interests and your priorities, and those things change over time. That's just part of this thing. Again, at the end, earlier on, I said, ultimately, I think it's really important to think about this too. If you're getting recruited to play, going where you're loved is really a big deal. If you're loved and they really want you, you're going to have a better experience. You're going to get playing time. You're going to have coaches that care for you versus the kid who's trying to force their way on a program or force their way on and was the last player on the bench and just never played. I do think that's something that's out there that you need to really consider. Go where you're loved. What I do, I give you a lot of information there, and I could go on and on about each criteria. I try to work with the kids I'm working with in those areas, but I directly connect college coaches and prospects at Right Fit Opportunities. I just talked to a kid tonight. They want to they're from Chicago. They want to go to school in the Chicagoland. And, the financial situation isn't really a big deal, but, he wants to play. And he wants to play at a pretty good school because he wants to go pre-med. Okay, so now I have this criteria. And now what schools do we need to target and and sort it out from there. Help maximize exposure. Like I said, help helping the kids I work with get the most exposure they can, whether it's figuring out how they need to get in front of coaches through camps, through playing with guest teams, through getting coaches to their games, to how do they reach out to coaches, having a good highlight video, all that type of stuff. How to save time, energy, and money on this process, and knowing how this process works, so you can save money in the end on the whole financial aid thing, and just guide and game plan this whole thing. And the game plan is always changing because you see things and you learn things, and you help reduce stress of this process as the time goes on. That's ultimately my goal, is to reduce stress of it. If you do want to reach out to me privately, you certainly can. My email, I have two emails, this one and then Dan at TSA Recruiting .com. Again, Dan at TSA Recruiting.com. My phone number is right here. Feel free to text me. If you want to meet with me, I'm happy to chat a little bit about your individual situation. See where that is, like where you're at with recruiting, if you started that process or if it's too far away, when to start, all that kind of stuff. I have another one November 9th for ODP. It's about ID camps and are they worth it? I think there's some good ID camps out there, and there's a lot of scams out there. There's a lot of scams in this thing. You're going to get a ton of emails. If you're on any email list somewhere, you're going to get a ton of emails about come to our camp. Um, they're always going to say, come to our camp, get recruited. Don't believe the hype. I wouldn't go to camps until I was deep into this thing and I knew a little bit more about what I wanted. And if I knew I thought I could play there, I think that's you can. If it's local and it's doesn't cost very much, okay, fine. I think that's not going to kill you. But if it's traveling any distance and going to camps, I think you should think twice about it. Couple questions that popped up. Can you mention the secondary schools in Iowa again? Or like schools that we have. I'm trying to guess this schools that we have like reciprocity with or like a deal with. Um, the South Dakota schools. We have there's a bunch of Division II schools and Division 1s. Wisconsin State schools. If this is the right answer, I don't know if this is what you're looking for. If it's not, type it back in. The Wisconsin State school system, UW, Platteville, UW, Stevens Point, Whitewater, Eau Claire, River Falls, Superior. There's a bunch of them. Those types of schools. Missouri Southern, we have a really good reciprocity with them. So I mean, I could go on and on. There's some that we do, and there's some that we don't. Um, I'm not quite sure of that question. So the for levels of nationals and club, I think maybe we're talking about, but I'm not quite sure of the answer. You can email me. Any other questions out there? If there's not, if there are individual ones you just want to ask on a regular um, one-on-one, send me a text, send me an email. I'm happy to answer, and then see how I can help you. There's a question about some of the stuff I talked about tonight. I just think having a really good idea of what you're looking for before you jump into this, or at the very beginning of jumping into this, sets the tone, right? I got too many kids that jump into this and start with, "Hey, I'm going to reach out to Clemson and UCLA." They can't get into UCLA and not good enough, and they've wasted months because all they do is reach out to schools that aren't good fits, and then we're stuck in a pickle because they still want to say they want to play, and now it's their senior year and we're scrambling because there's not the options that they want. So I think it's really good to target the right schools and put yourself in the right situation, academically, athletically, socially, financially. If you want individual help or just me to assess things where you're at, let me know. Or if it's down the road in a couple of years and that's when you're jumping into this because you're younger, certainly can help. So, all right, thank you. Have a great night. If there's anything, I'll stay on for a second if any other questions come up, and then otherwise you can reach out to me individually. Thank you.